Welcome to The Week Ahead, a podcast by SBM Intelligence. I'm your host, Veronica Pana Igube. Every Saturday, we explore stories that are shaping the African continent. Happy New Year and welcome to the first episode of 2025. Here's what's on today's agenda. Nigeria's poor road infrastructure poses a significant economic burden, costing the country billions of naira annually in lost productivity and resources. SBM recently surveyed 245 commercial drivers across 8 major hubs, and we saw widespread dissatisfaction with road conditions driving up vehicle maintenance costs. Addressing this infrastructure deficit could mitigate the economic challenges. We talk about this report. Next, we move to Landmark Africa, known for the landmark beach resort in Lagos, plans to relocate to its Nigerian headquarters and expand its operation following the April 2024 demolition of its iconic resort. A loss estimated at $80 million. The company has announced plans to establish a presence in 3 Nigerian states, enter 2 more African markets, and move its headquarters out of Lagos. What could Landmark Africa's mean for Lagos and Nigeria's real estate market? Nigerian telecom companies cite rising operation costs that have proposed a 100% tariff increase, although the federal government has approved a hike to be less than the requested percentage. MTN CEO Carl Teriola explained the factors driving this decision, which will soon affect calls, SMS, and data prices for millions of Nigerians. How will this tariff increase impact the average Nigerian and the broader economic of Nigeria? Finally, the French President Emmanuel Macron has expressed frustrations with African leaders in the Sahel region, accusing them of ingratitude despite French military assistance against terrorism since 2013. He claimed their sovereign depended on French military support, defending France's recent withdrawal from the region due to the surge in coups. How does Macron's comments and France's withdrawal shape the future of security and diplomacy in the Sahel? Joining us for insight is Bumi Bailey, Head of Research at SBM Intelligence. Welcome, Bumi.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's always great having you on the podcast. So let's start by you telling us about the recent SBM survey with commercial drivers. And from the survey, how can government balance immediate road repairs needs with long-term infrastructure development to ensure the sustainability of economic benefits?
Okay, Veronica, thank you, and thank you for having me once again. So before I dive into the report itself, let me actually tell you the rationale of why we actually decided to do that report, which is actually an updated version of the report we did in 2017. So roads are critical to the country's commerce. I mean, they serve as critical lifelines connecting cities, village, and markets. But Nigeria's inadequate road infrastructure has actually posed a challenge to the economy. I mean, it's cost billions annually. In loss to productivity and resources. I mean, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, I mean, under the transportation sector, we have the road transport. It actually contributes a large chunk to the transport sector. I mean, the road sector, even though it grew, it actually improved to about 2.5% growth from a contraction of about 35% in 2023. The growth in 2024 is less than double-digit growth that was recorded in 2020. So you can actually see the challenges in that sector. In that sector. So now back to the report which we actually released yesterday. So we surveyed around. Before I go to the survey, the report is actually titled "Road to Nowhere: A Bumpy Ride Through Nigerian Roads." So the survey actually gauged about 245 drivers across 8 major commercial hubs in Nigeria. We actually decided to focus on these guys because their voices are usually excluded from border transportation and policy discussions. And from our report, we actually discovered about 5 major issues that the drivers identified that was actually affecting activities and productivity in that sector. I mean, they highlighted about poor roads, potholes, roadblocks, security concerns, and traffic congestions. But out of that 5 issues that were identified, potholes and security issues actually were the major concern that the drivers highlighted. Apart from that, the survey also revealed traffic flow patterns with around the evening hours. I think let's say around 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., which actually experienced highest congestion on the roads. Apart from that, I talked about insecurity, which was highlighted by the road drivers. So insecurity is a significant concern, with an overwhelming 85% of the drivers reporting that they had either experienced or heard of security incidents along the travel routes. This is also inclusive of drivers and also passengers. And the spots that are actually identified by both the respondents is Port Harcourt Warri route, which is actually high risk areas for theft, attacks, kidnapping, especially at peak periods when commuters are, you actually see a surge in commuting. Apart from that, the poor state of roads also drive up finance maintenance costs, with nearly, let's say, 50% or half of the respondents reporting increased expenses and shorter vehicle lifespan. And when there's an increase in maintenance costs, you'd also see that translates to rising costs for transport. And as we know, a major spend for many Nigerians or even consumers is actually food and transport. You actually take almost close to about, let's say, 80% to 90%, from about 67% before inflation rose to its record high. So now let us go back on what actually needs to be done to actually solve the challenges in the sector, and actually which can actually improve productivity and in a way help to achieve Nigeria's $1 trillion goal by 2030. So these infrastructure deficits, I mean, they actually need to be tackled. I mean, for example, if you actually improve road conditions, I mean, road conditions would actually reduce delays, it reduces operational costs, it extends vehicle life span, and also stabilize transport costs, like I highlighted before. And also, enhanced infrastructure would also mitigate security risks. It will improve passenger satisfaction and also unlock economic growth. So all this, if we have improved road conditions, if we have enhanced infrastructures, all this will have a multiplier effect on the transportation sector. And we might actually see the transportation actually report double-digit growth that was actually recording since maybe about 5 years or maybe 6 years ago, before it's actually contracted in 2023.
Thank you, Bumi, for just key points that you mentioned. I mean, it's really important to be able to address the infrastructure problem, because once you do that, as you stated, it has so much benefits to the country and will contribute to economic growth and have economic benefits as well. Let's move to the landmark case. How could Landmark Africa's loss impact investor confidence in Nigeria's real estate sector? And what can our government do differently going forward to prevent demolition issues such as experienced by Landmark Africa?
Okay, so Landmark Africa, when Landmark announced the move to leave Lagos and to expand to go to other states in Nigeria and also expand to other African countries, I was actually not surprised, because I mean, the demolition that actually happened in their beach resort last year, I think that was April 2020. Yeah, April last year. I mean, they lost about, let's say, $80 million, and that's a lot. I mean, if you look at that area, you could see the contribution it will have for jobs, right, for government revenue and all. So in a way, the loss of Landmark, which is also a major player in Lagos, in the tourism and hospitality business, actually would actually have, in a way, have negative implications for the economy. I mean, like I said earlier, the hospitality industry has been gaining traction for some years now, but the exit of this this firm, right, would actually lead to job losses and decline in economic activities. It will reduce tax revenue to government. Also, as they move their operations elsewhere. I mean, you could actually imagine how much landmark with its large operations, right, and its influence in actually the Victoria Island area will actually have, or the return is actually give for government in terms of revenue. And then all these have a way of actually affecting or impacting investors' confidence in the economy. I mean, when they begin to see this, investors' confidence begin to dampen. And we know that right now Nigeria is actually on track to actually get FDI investment into the economy to actually achieve this $1 trillion target in 2030. Apart from that, the demolition that actually took place last year, in a way, would make international community would begin to see the government in a way will begin to face increased scrutiny over the handling of private property and the approach to development projects. Because I mean, you would actually come and just demolish a landmark area, and you won't actually think of the implication to actually have for the industry and also Lagos. But apart from that, I would also see it actually a win-win for landmark, because the demolition actually made them, like I said, they lost about $80 million. So for them, what they are not trying to do is they are trying to expand to new markets. And when you expand to new markets, you are open for opportunities for growth and profitability. Apart from that, it also helps you to reduce the reliance of the single market. I mean, the fact that they were relying on the Nigerian market, they lost a lot of money, right? So, but now that they are now expanding to other markets, it will in a way help them to mitigate the financial risks, right? I believe it's just a lesson they had actually learned from what actually happened last year. And then what I would actually suggest going forward that the government can actually do to prevent another company like Landmark from actually moving out of Lagos or out of Nigeria, because when a company leaves or multinational leave, it's actually the way that's foreign direct investment. I know what that actually has for the economy and also for development. So one way I could actually suggest is, in a way, they could actually the government would actually establish a clear and up-to-date building codes that can actually address structural integrity, safety and accessibility. I mean, another thing I would actually suggest is they should actually enhance public awareness and education. I mean, they should actually, launch campaigns to educate residents about building safety and their rights, and also in a way, establish channels for residents to actually report building or code violations. I mean, people should be aware of what is right and what is not right. And apart from that, I mean, they should actually implement strict penalties for people who actually violate I would say, any do I say any building? I would say any building law or any land law that actually has to be upheld.
Truthfully, I mean, the government has to ensure that they put in mechanisms that we can, prevent incidents like this, because losing a lot of money for a company as well is quite a loss. But I mean, that's a turnover that they're moving and expanding their business as well, and they're going to other states. So let's move on to the tariff increase in the telecom sector. How will this tariff increase impact the average Nigerian and the broader economy?
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Okay, I was saying that in reference to the telecom sector, telecom operators for a while have been pushing for an increase in tariff costs as opposed to in response to the rise in the cost of operations as well. So, how do you think that the recent approval of that increase by the Nigerian government would impact the average Nigerian and the broader economy as well?
So telcos pushing for tariff increase. Before we actually go down to how it should affect the average Nigerian and the broader economy, we should know that for over the past decades, right, telcos have actually been pushing for an upward review of tariff prices. I know in 2022, they actually proposed a 40% increase. So I'm not actually surprised that they're actually now proposing a 100% increase. I mean, we've seen inflation we've seen inflation, or we've seen prices actually more than double in just 1 year. I mean, Nigeria, we're among the country with the highest inflation rates, and in Africa, I think we should actually be number one. So it's not surprising that these guys are pushing for it. And I actually learned that the government I think was it yesterday, I saw in the news that the government has actually approved for
Yes,
that increase.
yesterday.
Yes, so they would not get 100%. So it's for them to actually, the government and the telcos, to sit down and actually come up with a tariff that would not be too harsh on Nigerians, because right now Nigerians' pockets, I would say our pockets are more than tight, right? We have we have tried to cope with prices as much as we can, but there's actually a limit, right? I mean, for the telcos, right, it's logical for them. I mean, they've posted record losses because of naira devaluation that happened in um in 2023. I mean, this actually further compounded their woes and made them to actually request more for tariff hike. So for consumers, I mean, the new rates, I mean, whatever is actually decided, will double data prices and call prices for many cash trap Niger I would call them cash trap Nigerians, right? Because right now we're in a bit of a tight corner. And also data subscription and telephone calls actually form a major spend for Nigerians. So in a way, I would see them trying to adjust their budget just to cope with the tariff increase. And I see more attention towards data subscription. If you know that after the COVID, or when the COVID-19 pandemic started, you could see that people were using more data, especially data services, demand for data, so especially for people that are doing online businesses. So they would actually find a way to actually adjust their budget, more like to see, okay, what they forgo, right, to be able to afford anyone, maybe calls or data. I don't think SMS, people don't really do SMS anymore since there's WhatsApp. So I just believe that consumers would actually try to find a way and adjust. But at the same time, higher prices would actually, in a way, make the telcos increase investment in the sector. I mean, investment in that sector has actually declined in recent years. And it's no surprise that we actually see that the internet service quality has actually been poor, maybe for like over the past 2 or 3 years. So this in a way will make them to actually invest to actually improve service quality, because for Nigerians, I mean, the price of something that is more or less like I think it's a necessity. Yes, it's a necessity, because I mean, you see the number of mobile phone users, they've actually surged over the last few years. So if you want people to actually buy your service and to actually appreciate the service, you actually have to improve the quality. So that's why I said that you see telcos in a way would now cost more investment through improving quality service, improving connectivity, and also infrastructure.
True. I mean, it's really an essential service as well. So moving on to our last story, on Macron's comment, President Macron, how do France's actions in the Sahel influence perception of sovereignty and foreign intervention in Africa? And what might you
Okay,
think are the long,
so
okay, yeah, just go ahead.
I mean, okay. France military interventions in the Sahel, well, it has placed and a very controversial issue. I mean, it has raised a lot of significant issues about sovereignty and also foreign interventions. I mean, some has actually argued that maybe France actions often comes with counter-terrorism efforts, or more or less like a continuation of, I would say, neo neocolonial practices, yeah, seeking to maintain influence and control over foreign colonies. I mean, most of them actually pointed out to, historical events where um, support for authoritarian regimes and its perceived economic exploitation of the region as evidence of lingering neocolonialism. So this has also highlighted the limitations of military interventions, arguing that it often fails to address the root causes of instability, such as poverty and maybe, yes, inequality, right? And while on the opposite side, some has actually have to defend France's involvement, citing the need to actually fight terrorism and protect vulnerable populations from extremist group. I mean, they argue that the Sahel faces or I would say that the Sahel faces a serious security crisis that threatens regional stability and international security, and that France military assistance is critical in countering these threats. Additionally, some points to the growing influence of other actors in the region, such as Russia, and argue that France's presence is necessary to counter these competing interests and maintaining stability. So, and also the issue of sovereignty, right? I mean, yes, it's central to the debate. I mean, while some have argued that French intervention undermines the sovereignty of African nations, others contend that it is a legitimate response to a transnational threat that transcends national borders. So, but for me, I think the question that borders me is whether military intervention is the most effective or appropriate response to challenges facing the Sahel. So, but overall, it still remains an ongoing debate. That's my opinion on that.
Thank you for your opinion on that. Lastly, I'd like to know what might be the long-term consequences of the strained relationship between France and the Sahel countries?
Okay, so funny enough, I see more negative long-term consequences. I hope they're not short-lived than the benefits. I mean, like I earlier said, withdrawal of French military support could actually worsen security issues in the Sahel, right? I mean, when this happens, or where security issues are actually increased, right? I mean, it should actually lead to an increase in terrorist activities and regional instability. Apart from that, I mean, France has been a significant economic partner for many Sahel countries, right? I mean, providing aid and investments. So this could actually, in a way, reduce the provision of aids and investments. I mean, which has actually helped to, in a way, reduce poverty for the Sahel region. Of course, the Sahel region. Apart from that, you would see the influence of French could actually create a power vacuum, that could actually be filled by other region or global actors. In a way, it could actually increase competition, but also it might lead to instability. Apart from that, when I talked about the reduction of aids and investments to actually which could actually worsen poverty. So it could actually potentially lead to an humanitarian crisis, right? We all know that the Sahel region, most of the countries, I mean, poverty rates are actually very high in those areas. So we will begin to see an increased displacement and humanitarian crisis in that Sahel region, which could actually lead to, in a way, a potential political instability in that economy. So all I could wish them is, all I can wish the Sahel is just best of luck.
Yeah. That's all for today. Thank you, Sheyi, for joining us and for your insights, which, of course, enriched the episode. To all our listeners, this podcast is by SBM Intelligence. You can access our podcast by searching for SBM Intelligence anywhere you find podcasts. For deeper insights into our work, visit our website at sbmintel.com. Remember to connect with us on all our social media platforms. You can find us on X, Facebook, and LinkedIn at SBM Intelligence. Thank you for tuning in to the week ahead. Join us next Saturday for more updates shaping the African continent.